Episode 2, The Shadow Work, Unmasking Your Hidden Self. Welcome back to The Inner Architect. I am so glad you've joined me for the second step of our journey. This podcast is brought to you by www.selfdevelopmentpsychology.com, your sanctuary for deep psychological growth and self-mastery. In our first episode, we talked about the power of identity, how the stories we tell ourselves about who we are dictate every action we take. We talked about casting votes for our new selves, but today we have to look at something a bit more uncomfortable. We have to look at the parts of our identity that we don't want to admit are there. In psychology, we call this the shadow. The concept of the shadow was popularized by the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung. He proposed that each of us has a light side, the part we show the world, the good person, the hard worker, the kind friend. But we also have a shadow side. This is the basement of your psyche. It's where you've stuffed away your anger, your jealousy, your selfishness, and your unacceptable desires. Most of us spend our entire lives running away from our shadow. We think that if we ignore it, it will disappear. But here is the truth that we emphasize at www.selfdevelopmentpsychology.com. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Part 1. How the shadow is born. Think back to when you were a child. You were born whole. You expressed every emotion freely. You screamed when you were angry. You laughed when you were happy. And you grabbed what you wanted. But very quickly, you learned that certain parts of you were not okay in the eyes of your parents, your teachers, or your peers. Maybe you were told, stop being so loud, so you pushed your spontaneity into the shadow. Maybe you were told, don't be selfish, so you pushed your healthy boundaries and self-interest into the shadow. Every time you were shamed for a behavior, you put that part of yourself in a bag and hid it behind your back. The problem is, as we grow older, that bag gets very heavy, and because those parts are hidden, we lose control over them. This is why you might find yourself snapping at a loved one for no reason, or feeling a wave of intense jealousy when a friend succeeds. That is your shadow leaking out. It is demanding to be seen. Part 2. The mirror of projection. One of the most fascinating aspects of shadow work is how we see our shadow in other people. This is a psychological defense mechanism called projection. Have you ever met someone who you immediately disliked for no clear reason? Their voice, their confidence, or their arrogance just gets under your skin? More often than not, that person is acting as a mirror. They're expressing a quality that you have suppressed in yourself. If you hate someone for being too loud and attention-seeking, it might be because you have a hidden part of yourself that desperately wants to be noticed, but you've told yourself it's bad to want attention. By judging them, your ego feels safe and superior, but you remain fractured. At www.selfdevelopmentpsychology.com, we invite you to look at your triggers as teachers. The next time someone makes your blood boil, don't ask, what is wrong with them? Ask, what part of me is this person reflecting? This is the beginning of true self-awareness. Part 3. The cost of suppression. You might ask, why can't I just leave the shadow alone? Why do I have to dig it up? The answer is simple. Suppression requires energy. It takes a massive amount of mental and emotional calories to keep your true feelings pushed down. This is one of the primary causes of burnout, chronic anxiety, and even physical illness. When you fight yourself, you are constantly losing. Furthermore, when we suppress our negative traits, we accidentally suppress our positive ones too. In the shadow, you don't just find anger, you find your untapped creativity, your hidden power, and your buried passion. If you suppress your anger entirely, you also lose your ability to be assertive and stand up for yourself. You become too nice, and people walk all over you. Shadow work is not about becoming a bad person. It is about becoming a whole person. It is about taking the energy back from the basement and using it to build the life you actually want. Part 4. Integrating the shadow. So, how do we perform this shadow work? It starts with radical honesty. At www.selfdevelopmentpsychology.com, we use a process called integration. Integration means looking at a shadow trait, let's say greed, and instead of saying, I'm a terrible person for feeling greedy, you ask, what is this greed trying to tell me? What need is it trying to meet? Perhaps your greed is actually a shadow version of a need for security. Once you acknowledge the need for security, you can meet it in a healthy, conscious way rather than letting the greed drive you to make impulsive, selfish decisions. A reflection pause. I want you to take a deep breath right now. Think of a trait in others that you find absolutely intolerable. Is it laziness? Is it vanity? Is it weakness? Now ask yourself, in what small ways do I have that trait? And how would my life change if I accepted that part of myself instead of shaming it? Part 5. The Architect's Integration. As an architect of your own life, you cannot build on a foundation that is full of holes. You must walk through every room of your internal house, even the dark ones, even the ones that smell like old memories you'd rather forget. When you integrate your shadow, you become untriggerable. You gain a sense of calm that no one can take away from you because you are no longer afraid of yourself. You know your dark corners, and you've brought a flashlight. For those of you ready to do the heavy lifting, we have a shadow work starter guide available at www.selfdevelopmentpsychology.com. It includes prompts for journaling and techniques for identifying your projections in real time. Remember, you don't do shadow work to be cured. You do it to be free. You do it so that you can show up in the world as your full, authentic self, not just the polished version you think people will like. Thank you for being brave enough to explore the darkness with me today. In episode 3, we are going to pivot toward the light and the science of the brain. We will discuss neural plasticity, the incredible biological proof that no matter who you have been, you have the physical power to become someone entirely new. This has been a production for www.selfdevelopmentpsychology.com. Until next time, be kind to all parts of yourself, even the ones in the shadow.